In case of an emergency, we rely on fire escapes to get out alive, but how can you be sure they're safe? 7 News investigation uncovers a massive statewide safety problem, faulty fire escapes ignored by inspectors.
Hank Philby Ryan shows us why you could be left with no way out.
The smoke, the flames, and the frightened faces, all in a firefighter's line of duty. But Chief William Hitchcock remembers the night it wasn't the fire that almost stopped him.
Oh, I was scared to death.
But the fire escape that broke underneath him.
Where the railing just came away from the building.
And our investigation found across Massachusetts more unsafe fire escapes. Rusty, deteriorating, crumbling, broken. And what state officials didn't know, the system they set up to keep fire escapes safe is also falling apart.
The potential ramifications are disastrous.
So let's look at this one. This expert ironworker is licensed to build, maintain, and inspect fire escapes. So then over here? For months, we examined dozens of them with alarming results. Looking at this today, would this pass inspection?
No.
In dormitories, at theaters, at homes, and apartment buildings. Rust is actually eating away the metal of the fire escape.
Correct.
And the bottom line?
It'll get weak and then eventually it'll fall.
This one has rotted connections. This one missing bolts, twisted metal. Would the stairs come down?
No, never come down.
This one a broken tread. So how dangerous is it for the people inside this building?
This fire escape is definitely going to put somebody either in the hospital or it's going to put somebody in a cemetery.
Fire escapes are so critical. The state building code requires they be certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years. But our investigation found that safeguard is simply being ignored. Here's proof. We chose fire escapes at random in Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, Worcester, and here in Quincy. We checked building department files, but there's no fire escape certification. To see if building owners had submitted their mandatory inspection reports. There's no certification in this one either.
Right.
Bottom line, not one we checked in Quincy had been certified as safe. And the director of inspectional services admitted because of staffing shortages, the city has no idea how many other fire escape owners are breaking the rules. And as a result, do you know how many fire escapes in your city are safe or not?
Well, I don't know.
In Worcester, not one we checked was certified. In Somerville,
No.
4 more fire escapes.
Did it fall through the cracks? Yeah.
Not one up-to-date certification. And again, no system for keeping track. How can they get away with that?
I guess that the shortest answer of all is because we don't have the resources to sit here and follow up on these things.
If structural deficiencies are reported, local building inspectors can actually evacuate residents until repairs are made. Would you talk to us on camera about this? No? But when we surveyed 24 more communities, most admitted they had no idea how many fire escapes were certified. In Taunton, inspectors told us they haven't seen a certification in 25 years. Northampton officials said it's a cold day in hell when that happens. In Cambridge, too, not one of our test buildings was certified, and the official in charge would not come out to discuss it. In Boston, where there are more than 8,000 fire escapes, again, according to inspectional services, not one we checked was certified. Officials know they are required to enforce the building code, but they admit they don't always know if owners are breaking the law. The building code is being ignored.
Right, but it's difficult to write a violation when you don't have knowledge of something like that.
But state officials say for a critical issue like this, communities should know. And they warn the Massachusetts building code is not optional. Does it worry you that these fire escapes are not being certified?
This is an important issue and should not be ignored.
That's because after the smoke and flames begin, it'll be too late to learn you've got no way out.
I can't stress it enough, Hank, that these things have to be maintained and someone's got to be watching.
As a result of our investigation, state officials will now issue an alert to local inspectors. Meanwhile, if there's a fire escape on your home or office, you can contact your local building department to make sure it's properly certified.
Basically, this in 75, the date is wrong here. In 75, just so you know, the firemen with one hand caught the ladder at the last instant. He saved himself. So the fireman, even though everything collapsed around him, he's still hanging on. She tried to grab onto him. She died with all the pieces of the steel that came down, killed her. The baby landed on her, survived, got hurt. 8-year-old niece. That's what changed the law to make it every 5 years. Okay? Now, let's go down to Rhode Island, Brown University. I've inspected and certified all of Harvard University's fire escapes. That's 375. So in my marketing, we'll get some bigger names because I've done Tufts, I've done MIT, I've done all these different schools. Brown University, I need to inspect your fire escapes. The law doesn't require it. There's no law in Rhode Island that says you must maintain your fire escape every 5 years, and a certificate must be sent to the building official. It is written in 3 laws, in the fire department codes, in the state code. There's 3 areas where it says all egress must be maintained at all times, which is great. So if it ain't broke, I don't have to fix it. And that's what Brown told me. It ain't broke, so I'm not going to fix it, and I'm not going to go looking for trouble. So imagine if anybody has kids at Brown, none of their fire escapes have ever been inspected. They just fix them as they break them. It happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of just bring the awareness of what fire escapes are. And let me finish what Boston did. Boston, in order to catch up with this now, they changed one thing. Any building permit being pulled on any building, they issue the permit. To sign off on the permit, they find out whether that building has a fire escape, and only with a new affidavit with that permit will they sign off that permit. So whether they're changing a light bulb or they're putting an addition on the house, and that house has a fire escape, that's it. They just say, hey, we'll sign off when you give us the current certificate. That sort of jump-started, because anybody who's already pulling a permit is financially doing something with their building, buying, selling, renting, so there's already a financial motive to get the thing going, and by the time you throw the needs to be certified part at it, that they're usually ready. It's just one more expense that they didn't see, but they'd like to get. They just ignored it, because a lot of times when building inspectors walk through a building, the last thing they touch is a fire escape. So we're going to start showing you some signs of a fire escape that fails right off the bat. So by you knowing a fire escape that failed out right off the bat, you don't have to walk it. It needs 2 things. It must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. Just by looking at it and it's rusty, say, hey, doesn't pass inspection. You don't have to stomp on the tread, you don't have to climb it, you don't have to do anything. Just there's going to be some things that we're going to show you here that hopefully will make your awareness so that when you walk through a building, you see a fire escape, it'll fail for 2 reasons. Must be kept painted, must be structurally sound, it's written right in the code. All right, let's talk about a couple of things that happen and why these fire escapes need to happen. This, as some of you may remember, in Beacon Hill, it's a 5-story building. It's a 4-story building. And this 5-story building, at the very top there's a window that crosses over this crossover catwalk, like all these other catwalks down here. Goes from one window to the other window. So you're crossing a firewall, you're crossing you're 2 separate buildings. You go from one window and you just kick in the other window. That's how you get into the other window, and vice versa. But at the very top, this is a crossover that goes onto a rooftop. And this rooftop had a deck on the other side. So this is Beacon Hill, lots of money. So the people, this guy and his girlfriend on this side used to cross over to go and hang out on the deck of somebody else's building all the time, and nobody ever caught them, so they did it all the time. Late at night. And so it's about 2 years ago, I think, that this happened. The only problem is that they redid the roof, and they didn't put back all the railings. They didn't put back all the catwalks. Yeah, and then they built this deck on the other side that in order to get into it, you have to climb over the rail. So this guy on a night, being typical 28-year-old girlfriend and boyfriend, they decided to go over and have some beers on the roof deck. And yep, they were drinking. And so because he lives here, he knows the rules. He climbs over, jumps over onto the deck, and then when the phone rings, which why it rang at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, nobody knows, but it rang. He would then basically from the deck on this building, he has a certain way that he climbed out, went around and held the rail of the deck because there's very little roof space left, and then he would come back to here and then cross over. This day he's there with his girlfriend, and the phone rings. She decides to get the phone for him. He goes, no, I'll get it, because he has this little path that he takes, because he's a regular. He already knows the whole deal. She goes, no, I'll get it. So she, half drunk, by the way, climbs over and misses the chute, which gets back to the window. She sort of hangs a right. She fell 5 stories, died. He was coming around, couldn't see her anymore, and got that sick feeling in the stomach, and she was downstairs, dead, because it was an incomplete fire escapes. Didn't control the people at all times. You must control the people on a fire escape with catwalk systems until you get them into a door or into the other building. You can't have anything, any gaps, any openings. Full, complete rails. But she fell. So there's the missing rail. You need to see the little hole where the rail used to be. So there's supposed to be a rail to the left, and there's supposed to be a rail to the right going towards the chimney. As you can see the hole there. So the roofer didn't put this back. The only problem is that the guy who certified this fire escape certified the left building and certified the right building. We certified an incomplete system. So now the building got problems because even though they were trespassing, they never stopped them from trespassing. Certified both sides of the building. So this just happened recently, Boston University. This is that fire that started, NSTAR was doing some electrical. Best time to do electrical, I think, is at Friday night at a college area, so that when they all come back at 2 o'clock in the morning, everybody gets out their candles. Because I'm sure they're just going to come back from partying around the bars in that area. So NSTAR picks up Friday night to go and fix the electrical issue in that zone over there, down by Park Drive. This is what happened. This is the rear. This is how fast the fire burns. And this is just called a crossover. We're going to go over all kinds of fire escapes very shortly, but let me tell you what the rule is here. This fire escape here has a firewall going down this entire building. This guy jumps out his window, crawls over, and smashes that window, or vice versa. This guy crawls over and smashes this window. That's how he gets out. Now this is the back. This is where the fire started. They say, I think the 1 or 2 people died at this fire escape. I mean, at this fire. I think at least one. I'm sure. I think one got seriously hurt, and I think it became 2. But the ones in the back, the ones that got trapped. 43 seconds later, they were done. If they couldn't get to this fire escape, they were done. The biggest problem here was in the front, though, because now the fire worked its way from the back all the way to the front. But here's the front. The one thing about this building that I want to make mention is that I inspected this building probably 5 years ago, and in the news story, if you look at the Channel 7 news story that night when they were taking a picture of it, there was a AC unit in that window. So I got 43 seconds to get up, take this AC unit out, or crawl over it, or from here crawl into the hallway and get out. 45 seconds. So I don't know who got hurt, but whoever was in this room didn't have a chance. The people that got killed were in the back. This is the back. The front didn't get as much damage because the fire worked from the back to the front. But smoke knocked out whoever was here. And if they even thought of going to the fire escape, they couldn't because they had an obstruction. You cannot obstruct fire escape windows. No obstructions, no plants, no nothing on the fire escape. Okay? Yes?
You're talking about air conditioners. Who in the catching? Satellite televisions.
I've never thought about that, but yeah.
All of them.
Yeah,
Yep.
I've seen that a couple of times.
Yeah, you got to get them out. They can't have them. They can put them on. They can mount them on the railing, on the outside of the railing. You can mount anything to this fire escape outside of it. You need your 24-inch, 36-inch clearance inside. Okay. Oh, you like this one? This is recent. We're down in Blackstone. Anybody here from Blackstone? No. All right. We're down here. This is 3 fire escapes. One here, and one here that looks just like this one. Condo. And what you had here on this one is a roofer came in and did the whole roof, brand new roof. Okay? And he put a brand new roof, and this fire escape that's sitting, this pile of rubble that's sitting right here, used to be up there. And what happened was that day, the owner of the building and his real estate agent, the buyer and his real estate agent, and some other guy that happened to be there they all climbed up this fire escape to sort of take a peek up here at the fire escape. And the whole fire escape fell with everybody on it into this rubble mess over here. One person got hurt, and he says, no, I'm okay. Just help me call my lawyer. I didn't die. I'm okay. I don't have to buy your condo anymore. I think I'm going to own it. Hold on. Lucky. So now we get there, the bolts, the guy just lag bolted it back into the original holes. No through bolting on any. So we have to go there and we have to secure, because all of them were ready to collapse. This is the only one that collapsed. But we have to go in there and basically through bolt it. And we'll talk about what the proper procedure for attachment is. But this one didn't kill anybody, but it nearly maimed somebody that knew how to dial his phone. Because I'll tell you, lawyers are all involved. The condo association is suing the roofer. The guy who got hurt is suing the roofer and the condo association. I mean, it's just one big lawsuit. Okay? So this just happened just recently. And, oh, there's where it used to be, and this is what it looks like, and there's the staircase. How nobody got killed on this is beyond me. But we've just put this back up. Took it all apart, untwisted all the things, and put it right back up. Properly through bolted it where it needed to be through bolted, because it basically just slid off the roof with 5 people on it. All right, so the law, 1028.3, must be kept painted. This is the quick version. All fire escapes must be inspected and certified by structural engineer and or others accepted to the building official, and a certificate must be submitted to the official stating that the fire escape has been certified and is in structurally sound and has been kept painted. So, and the word in there is, for some of you, is by structural engineer and or others acceptable to the building official. In Boston, it's a G3 license. So the guys that do railings and window guards and every now and then touch a fire escape, we're as good as the engineers. We'll sign off affidavits all day long. In Boston. Some cities don't allow us. They don't allow us to come out of Boston and sign. You guys only want structural engineers. Even though it says, and or others accept the building official. What we want to do as fire escape service, we want to hopefully prove on a one-to-one basis, on a case-by-case basis to some of you to say, hey, hopefully you let us sign off, because I have personally signed, and I've been in business for about 30 years now, I have signed all of a lot of institutional fire escapes, and I have engineers on staff. So whenever the question comes up, I already have an engineer on staff. So it's not a question, but the cost associated to the client is higher every time any one of you make me use an engineer to sign somebody's affidavit. But hopefully I can prove to you that I can sign and I'm qualified to sign. And one of the things I've done now is in Boston, working with Gary Mosher, I just put in a letter recently stating that he needs to review the G3 license and not let the iron workers who do general window guards and railings sign off fire escapes. They should all come back in and retest themselves and prove to the city of Boston that they can do, that they're going to take this serious, because a lot of them don't, and we're going to get into why they don't, and get what's either a G3 with an F on it or an F3 license or just a fire escape license, saying that they've basically taken on the responsibility of signing for those so that we can get qualified. Now, if in some of your cities I can prove to you that I'm qualified to inspect these, great. If not, I'll use my structural engineer. It just costs more to the client that we're inspecting for. And to wake up an engineer, sometimes it costs a few bucks. They don't get out of bed a lot of times for cheap money. But otherwise, hopefully we can show you on a one-by-one basis that we can inspect in your city and inspect some of your buildings if you'd like to inspect, because we can do it at a much cost-effective number than most engineers. Take a peek. And we're going to show you the kind of reports we do. So some of the things that we've done, and we mentioned the city of Boston now, every permit that goes out, if it has a fire escape on that building, on the sign-off, they don't sign off. They just say, give me a certificate, then I'll sign off. And then they started doing streets. They said, okay, now we're going to do Tremont Street. Now we're going to do, they stopped picking streets. And they started sending out blank letters. If any of you would like a blank letter of that, what the city of Boston sends out, you have 30 days to comply. I don't find any certificate on file. You have 30 days to comply. Very simple. Okay, so we can provide that to you also. And in Rhode Island, one of the things that we did, that because of this Brown University saying they don't inspect their fire escapes, I met with a gentleman, Jeff Johnson, Pawtucket Deputy Fire Marshal, and we did a presentation in front of because in Rhode Island, unlike Massachusetts, it's driven by the fire department. After building's built, the fire department handles everything. If it's going to be built, it's a building inspector the building inspectors. But after something gets built, building inspectors do not deal with fire escapes, certifications, don't do with anything. And this is the same thing in, for example, Los Angeles. We're doing fire escape work in Los Angeles, fire department driven. Building inspectors are there, to check some of the plans for things new. But as soon as it becomes new and it's been built, fire department takes over. So it all depends on. Every state is driven either by building inspectors or it's driven by fire departments. Here it's building inspectors. Rhode Island, it's New York fire departments. Okay, so they're now what they're doing now. They're trying to copycat Boston and get a 5-year rule in Rhode Island right now. Make it a 5-year rule. It's going to take its time to walk, to go through the code, because they either got to drop it into their fire marshal codes, but it's not going to be going into the building inspector codes. It's going to be a fire department thing. But what they have done is that they have this list. In order for a building to become code compliant now, they've added fire escape certification to that list. I think there's 17 conditions in order for your building to become a code compliant and current, and they added fire escapes from our last meeting that we did last year around January. Okay? All right, certificates. This is a Boston certificate right here. You have Boston here. I have one from Cambridge. Basically, very simple information: where the building's located, what kind of fire escape you have, an egress, connecting balcony, wood stairways. Don't forget, wood stairways is a fire escape. Located in the front and rear, name and address of the owner. To the best belief, it's in conformity with the building provisions. And the fire escape installer or engineer, registration numbers, license, and sign off here and get it notarized. Boston asks for $50 every time you send it. It used to be $100. They ask for $50 every time you submit this every 5 years. They ask for $50 filing fee. Cambridge never had a certificate. They just came out with this. I gave this to it was his name, Dave. It was one of the guys that when I was taking a course getting my license. They copied, I believe, the Boston certificate. As you can see, it's pretty simple. But they asked for $100. Now, when I inspected 375 fire escapes for Harvard, no fee for the second 5-year cycle, because I've been with them for about 10 years now. When in the 5-year cycle, when it comes up, 375 fire escapes at $100 a piece. That's a lot of change coming in on that hit. This is the affidavit from Brookline. Brookline here. There you go. And we have one here from Somerville also. And as you can see, they're all pretty similar. Okay. The only thing that we've done, and we suggest, and we have blanks for you. The only thing we suggest is you can just call any one of these cities, or you can ask. We can fax you or email you any one of these cities. Erase the top, put your name in there. You have a certificate. That's it. Okay. The only thing I suggest, though, I have modified the certificate, and I have this. This is in your piece. If you look in the back, 2 or 3 sheets down, it's on the back of this sheet here. There's a blank for you. Okay? It says the same thing that Boston says. It says the same thing as Cambridge, Somerville, Brookline. It says the same thing. I've only added a couple things as a suggestion. Otherwise, take any one of these, which we can get you, and use a traditional one. And let me tell you, one of the things I suggested that we've added on there. The part that we've added on, and this is the certificate we'd be sending you, is one of our certificates. If you don't allow our certificates, then yeah, I have to give you one of your city certificates. Otherwise, if I inspect in your city, I'll be sending you one of these, either signed by me or signed by my structural engineer, whichever one you choose. But if you have one of these in your city, the only thing I added that what happens on some of these guys that inspect fire escapes, engineers and or fire escape guys that inspect these fire escapes, they miss a lot of things. So I tried to eliminate their nonchalant way of inspecting a building by throwing an eyeball at it. And one of the things is I'm trying to get them to sign off and check off a couple more things. And you can see down at the bottom. Well, first let's start at the top. I certify that the fire escape, exterior bridge, egress, connecting balconies, wooden stairways, and you have to tell them whether it's on the side, the front, the rear, on the rooftop. I say one or more of the following components have passed inspection: staircase and treads, supports, railings, grading, which a lot of guys don't even look at the grading, with all the knuckles that have rotted out, and the ladders. The cantilever is balanced. We're going to cover that in a little bit, because a lot of these guys have chains on the cantilever, and you got to walk out 4 treads. That's wrong. It's illegal. It's called a release cantilever. It must drop and stay down when release arm is activated. Basically, in that statement, I've said that the engineer has released the cantilever. It has dropped like it's supposed to, and then he has put it back up, so he's proof that the cantilever system is an active cantilever system. It's not one that either a 40-pound child or a 200-pound man needs to walk out 3 or 4 treads and sort of create the balance to drop. Because as soon as that person gets off, the thing comes right back up. And what happens when the fireman arrives? The cantilever's up 12 feet, which is the average height of one. How's it going to go up and save anybody? Whereas it's supposed to release, drop, hit, stay. People go down, firemen go up. Otherwise, I'm going to show you what makes cantilevers not be passing. But so, let me continue here. Catwalks. Catwalks are continuous and cross over all roof areas. What that means is, how many fire escapes I inspect that have, they come out of a window or a door, they come on, land on a roof, there's a rubber roof, and somehow they have to find their way to the corner where there's either a ladder or a continuing staircase to the ground. Now, that's not including any smoke, that's not including any darkness, that's not including any snow, any slippery conditions. You're supposed to control people all the way down to the ground. And that means it needs a catwalk, a steel, non-combustible catwalk. Which, by the way, we did probably 2 weeks ago, we did a show like this at AFFIDAVITS with about 15 guys there, and we had somebody from the state there that actually, there was a little bit of debate because, all fire escapes must be made out of non-combustible material. He goes, no, it can be made out of wood. Minimum thickness, 2 inches. I got corrected. So we tell him he's not going to have a fire escape that is steel, then the guy can build his own catwalk out of, at least 2 inches thick lumber, and then go to another piece of steel down the ground. Yeah, because it's based on the type of the building. So if you already have a wooden structure, you can build a wooden catwalk and be part of the fire escape. I always thought everything had to be 100% non-combustible and steel, so I was corrected. So a lot of times I tell people, though, you can build a wooden one, but in 10, 15 years, that thing's going to rot out, and they have to replace it as opposed to steel. It's a lot more forgiving. You can ignore it for 50 years. Okay? So that we got corrected. But all fire escapes, you must have catwalks are continuous and cross over all roofs. Otherwise, the fire escape fails again. It needs a continuous catwalk system. Otherwise, just like that Beacon Hill, if it doesn't have a catwalk, people can fall off the building, roll off the rooftop. You need to control the people. And the catwalk must be like a bridge. It must go over a complete roof and tie you into the next staircase and or ladder. Okay? Well, if you have questions, just pop them up. All fire escape components and materials are non-combustible. I'm going to have to modify this to say, or 2-inch minimum, fire-rated wood. I don't know how many people have worked with fire-rated wood in the past, but it's something hard to get nowadays. Entire fire escape is or has been painted. Because I can't tell you how many fire escapes people certify that are just big rust buckets that people, when they run their hands through, they're going to cut their hands, or it's just full of rust. And that's an indicator that all the connections have failed. Because fire escapes don't rust, connections rust, and then they feed the rest of the fire escape. And there's no obstructions leading to or on the fire escape. AC units, window guards, plants, etc., cables, satellite systems. We'll add it in, and this is modifiable. Down here it has a place for the licensed engineer, the fire escape installer, all their names and information. The one thing I've added here that nobody does, I've added building inspector sign off. I think all building inspectors should not let neither myself nor an engineer sign off a fire escape without countersigning us and checking our and doing either a pass by, because a lot of times after we prove ourselves, some of you may not want to go inspect, but you may want to spot inspect us. But I would inspect, and we're going to cover that. I would inspect the inspector, because I'll tell you, we've got some problems with fire escape guys that are not being responsible. But we have a lot of engineers out there, not as many, that are just as irresponsible when it comes to signing. So I recommend on the one that we modified that that the building inspector, until he gets to know who's inspecting in his town, countersign all affidavits. So that's here for you to copy. You just put this on a copier, take the thing off the top, which is made for you to put your name, or call me, give me your cards, and a lot of times right off your card, off your website, we can get the city symbol, and we'll do this nice and pretty. Again, there's nothing in here that says Farscape Services. There's no phone numbers. There's, you know, if you hold it up against a light, it won't give me the 1-800 number or something like that. But there's a lot of information in here and this is the first step in starting a Farscape program, is get an affidavit. Whether or not you want to charge, the filing fee is up there. So as you can see, our piece is going to be pretty much the same as the piece that we're going to be sending you. Okay. Let's take a look at the kind of people that own fire escapes out there. From here to California, I've inspected in Texas, I've inspected in Chicago, just recently did Long Beach, California, and LA. LA right now, the downtown LA, which has been empty for 30 years. Next time somebody goes down to LA, go check out the downtown LA, which has been empty for 30 years. Now all those buildings are going residential. All those buildings, they're getting their tunnels dug underneath there for parking, and all the buildings, which I'll show you in a little bit, are all becoming high-end residential, $500,000 to $1 million condos. And guess what they're using as a second means of egress? Even though they're gutting the building completely, exceeding the 75% rule. We just finished doing a 12-story building. But again, sometimes you have no place to put an additional staircase someplace, because some of these buildings, they're packed side to side, they're only so deep. So why did fires, let's take a look at, well, first of all, let me just step back here for 1 second. As I said before, we inspect from Boston to California. My clients have been, again, Harvard University, Caldwell Banker, Boston Realty Works, Mr. and Mrs. Joe homeowner. So we inspect residential, we inspect commercial, we inspect institutional, the Universalist Church. I've done work for the Archdiocese. So we're doing a Farscape right now down in Princeton. We do work in New Jersey. We do work in throughout. And what we do is we actually, much like you have an association that sets standards, Farscape Services is also getting groups and other ironworkers to join our group. We're trying to franchise from here to California, so we're in the process of doing that. But we have here with me today, we have Ernie. Stand up for a second. Ernie, who owns a Farscape company called Gima Farscapes. We have Tom, that owns CNC Ironworks out of Boston also. And these are guys that in the past have done and do work and signed Farscapes right now in the city of Boston. These guys. And they go, Ernie was with me out in California doing that Farscape oversight. We basically oversee, because there's too much, 8,500 Farscapes in Boston. Give me a Farscape a day, and I got work for 40 years, and I won't go to the town next over. So if we don't start working with some of the people that are out there fixing Farscapes, the one thing that we're doing is we're inspecting and setting the standard. And then, as some of these people, if they join our team, they have to have a minimum standard. Our minimum standard for anybody to work in our group is that if we inspect and certify any Farscape in a town and repair and paint it, we'll give you a 10-year warranty on it. That says that Farscape will pass inspection for the next 10 years, or we'll fix it for free, no matter who inspects it, no matter when it gets inspected. It will always pass. So that's our standard, and we have some people joining us and some people don't want to join us for some obvious reasons, okay? But let me show you what kind of Farscapes there are out there, a little bit about the history of Farscapes, okay? But what I'd like to do is, as I start talking of Farscapes from here to California, so that way you can see how well we're doing here, because believe me, out there it's the Wild West. I'd like to open it up to a few questions, because, I mean, we already hit a few things as we spoke. Does anybody have any questions? And sort of take a little break. I'll get a little bit of coffee in me for a second. Yes? Yeah. All Farscapes are very forgiving. I have Farscapes that could be 100 years old, and I can still rebuild them. Just change the bolts. Don't forget, a lot of people don't realize 98% of all Farscapes are bolted connection Farscapes. All the treads have 4 bolts, the railings are all bolted on, the grating is all bolted down, the supports are all bolted together, and you can literally take a Farscape apart and lay all the pieces on the ground and ship it, and like the London Bridge, they took piece by piece. I'll take that Farscape off that building and I'll mount it on another building, anywhere you want, because it's all bolted connections. problems occur as we go on. A lot of guys don't like using bolts. They like using welding machines. And no firemen. Welding machines and no firemen. But yeah, it's just we got there, we rebolted the whole thing. So, and I'll go into it. I'll show you how fire escapes are made. And basically 98% of all the fire escapes you see out there are bolted connections. And the way to repair them is take the bolt out, remove the rust, put the bolt. But I'll cover that in a second. Into how fire escapes are put together. Yes?
Yeah, what type of occupancy was that building previous to becoming a apartment?
Well, the occupancy, believe it or not, it's a funny story. It had 2,000 cats living in it for 30 years. So they had to, and they had, I think it was so many pounds of, yeah.
Was it all industrial?
It was, no, it was all office buildings. All downtown, you're going to have office buildings and commercial all over the place, and it's dead. You hit 6 o'clock, I mean, we went through this here, guys. I mean, from Somerville to Lynn, you have everybody walked to work, everybody worked, nobody needed a car. And all of a sudden, a lot of you have dead downtowns that if you don't have an answer to it, I'll tell you what the answer was up in Lynn. Lynn created a zone that within a quarter mile of the train station, which was the Purple Line, and the bus station up there by the North Shore Community College, they made any building that was a factory building that had no parking anywhere, they made it artist work live loss with no parking requirement, but it was all within a quarter mile of that downtown. And there isn't a dead building in the center of Lynn now because of that. Because they said that people are going to start commuting into work or whatever, and it basically changed the downtown. But now all the downtown had fire escapes and as a means of egress, and all those needed to be addressed. And we have inspected for the city of Lynn some of their buildings, and they had to put it out to bid, you know.
Julia,
Everett,
Julia.
Westboro, we've done a lot of inspections throughout. But in LA, these buildings have been literally dead for 30 years because, as you know, if you don't have a parking space in front of your office, if you don't have a parking space in front of your business, you're dead. So all these malls and all these other setups started happening outside, and if your client can't park and walk in your door, you have a dead building. So all of downtown LA was dead, and is dead as we speak. We have some gorgeous buildings down there that are dead, 12, 20-story buildings. But now, every one of them is being dug out. Their basements are being dug out, and they're going into the basements to park all their cars, and all the condos are being sold. So now that's the answer. They're just turning all residential. Some of that is happening right here in Boston, you've seen.
I was looking at that third picture with that chimney going up alongside the fire escape. Are there any things or regulations or anything on hazardous conditions around the fire escape at all?
There is. There always is. And a lot of times you're going to help me with that by telling me, hey, you know, this is hazardous. But if anything that's hot, that can cause a fire. And a lot of times, until it's caught, you know, people just do whatever they damn please until it gets caught by somebody. And a lot of times it's me making the suggestion and me saying I won't sign something like that because it has some issues.
Because I'm looking at that, the fire escape might pass for structural and painting and all that, and then you get this thing going up alongside of it.
Yep.
You're going to fire, you're going to toast the people in the fire escape.
Correct.
On a structurally sound fire escape.
Yep. So let me tell you what I have here. Any more questions? Because I saw one hand kind of raising before I go, just so that make sure everybody gets another sip of coffee. Yes.
What's the average cost of, say, an inspection for a steel?
Our inspection fee runs, if you have crossover balconies like this, it's $200 for the inspection and the report, or a certificate, depending, or $500 for a 5-story fire escape. $200 to $500. That's the max. And if you give us the job, we deduct that fee from the job. If you don't give us the job, the inspection fee I'll walk you through what our inspection entails, because it's more of a bid spec. We set it up for bid. That's what makes us unique, is that we're not there to say, hey, give us this job. We're there to say, hey, we've set the spec. We got all the bids you want. Here's our bid on the same job, but ours comes with a 10-year warranty. Now go out and shop it around. But we made it simple for shopping around. I'll cover that, how we inspect, which is the way I think everybody should inspect, but they don't, and that's what makes us unique, is that we inspect differently.
And what's it add to the cost if you have to use your engineer?
On average, it becomes anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for the inspection, or $750 to $1,500 for the same inspection, depending on the size and complexity of the fire escape. Yeah, it's hard to wake up engineers. Okay, let's talk about the history. History of fire escapes is very simple. Back when everybody had, if you had a house in New York, you had a house in Boston, basically You had a 20 by 40 row house, staircase along the side somewhere that went the whole 5 floors, and then you would feed rooms, and usually somebody owned the whole house. But as time went on and people started dying, they say, hey, we need an answer. We need a second means of egress out of these places. So one of the possibilities, whenever possible, build another staircase within your building. Hopefully, as far away from the original, from the first. So if you have something in the front, put a staircase in the back, and that's one of the options. When you have a single-family home or 2.5-story home, that became the answer. Staircase in the front, staircase in the back. You've mentioned means of egress. A lot of buildings got retrofitted, and they somehow snuck in a stair in the back. But then all of a sudden, some of them, they said, I have no place to put a stair. We need an answer outside. That's where fire escapes came into play. And the first one that came into play was called crossovers. These are called crossover balconies, 24 inches wide on average. And this is the firewall. And as long as you cross the firewall, you've met the means of egress requirement, and you can just go right over. Kick your neighbor's window in. That's why you can't have any bars and windows on any of these windows. Kick your neighbor's window in, get out, and get away from the fire, or vice versa. This is happening here also. This is sort of a fire escape / deck. This guy would cross over and break that window in, and vice versa. As long as you cross a firewall, we're good. And this is a firewall, as you can see here. There's a distinct firewall. The third is called a waiting balcony. This is not considered a second means of egress, but this is considered a waiting balcony, where this is actually in Chelsea. Anybody here from Chelsea? This is on the Chelsea Soldiers' Home. And this is nothing more than what you step out into and you wait to be rescued. Get out of the fire, get out of the building. This is called a waiting balcony. But there's no firewall to break. This is just getting out of the window, and maybe this is a part of the wing that's hard to get people out, so they got them out there. One way that we could augment this is by putting a ladder here. If there was a ladder, they'd be grandfathered in. They could have a ladder. Now, we're going to cover ladders in a little bit, because some of you are saying, well, ladders were never an acceptable means of egress. Then somebody should tell all the people that have ladders. And depending on the city, on a case-by-case basis, some cities are starting to remove the ladders. If the people that own those ladders can prove they had ladders before and that it was a permanent thing, they can keep their ladders. If they can't, they make them tear the thing down and put a door, full staircase 7-11, 36 inches wide. Again, city by city, inspector by inspector basis. This is down in Taunton. Aluminum ladder. New Bedford, Taunton. My God, there was a guy down there building aluminum fire escapes all day long. But as you can see, the railing didn't pass inspection. The other issue is that if there's a fire here, one of the things I don't like about aluminum, melting point is 1,000 degrees. Whereas iron, the melting point is 3,000 to 4,000 degrees. If there's ever a fire, by the time, yes, 3,000 to 4,000 degrees. Yeah, then there's the expense factor. But normally, steel galvanized will give you 40, 50 years protection. So if there's a fire that blows out, by the time the fire, that 45-second fire blows out of here, it's already hitting 2,000 degrees. When it flashes over like it did, by the time it blows out this window and hits the air outside and gets some more meat, it'll hit 3,000 to 4,000. By the time the firemen arrive, this fire escape is already wilted. But it's non-combustible and it meets the requirement. Okay? So, question?
One more thing, the guy over there.
Excuse me?
Sorry, is that how they get away with it?
Well, it's not getting away with
I've
it.
driven through Taunton and I see
It's not getting away with it.
aluminum sitting there.
I don't think there's anything wrong with aluminum fire escapes at all. And the fact is, you're going to get burnt just getting out and going down because you're holding on to something, whether it's iron or if it's aluminum. So as far as that goes, it's better than absolutely having nothing.
Oh, yeah. I didn't say it's wrong. They met the requirement.
It's your tone, I think, that is making a joke of it. The point is that whether it's aluminum or steel or whatever the case is, at 2,000 degrees or 1,000 degrees or 800 degrees, 220 degrees, your hands are going to burn, and your skin's going to come off on the aluminum. And if you can't get out of there and you can't put up with that, what the hell?
In the suppliers, because there's a supplier, John B. right out of Colorado, they'll sell the aluminum fire escapes all day long, and I'm a distributor for them. So it's not that I don't like them. There's an issue that they've said to me. I said, listen, well, how am I going to get across this melting issue? And they said, well, at 180 degrees, water boils. So if you're in a room and it's gone over 180 degrees, it's really a moot point whether your fire escape has melted off the building. It's that point taken. You know, so, but it is non-combustible, and it is a means of putting up a fire escape. But a lot of times they haven't met the remaining requirements, which, you know, standard rails at 42, bars every 4, you know, the necessary things that you need. And there's ladders. Some of you will read that ladders were never an acceptable means of egress, but somehow they're all up all over the state, all over the United States. But some of you will allow, they will not allow new ladders, but if you have an existing ladder, you can modify it, what do you call it, repair it or replace it.
Back in the 60s, there was a code out for strictly fire escapes, and it's a prescriptive code that tells you exactly how to build them, what has to be done, and I mean, and that was part of the late 50s, early 60s, but we used to do so damn many of them. So I don't think that fire escapes are. I think they're a damn good second way out if you have no other alternative.
Right.
And I think the state code has made a mistake in totally outlawing them entirely in Massachusetts.
New fire escapes.
Right.
In new construction. Right. Existing. So on a new construction, nobody can ever build a new fire escape. But on an existing building, that has a fire escape, you can always replace it, repair it, and maintain it for the life of the building. Okay. I'm going to cover fastening in this. I'm going to cover that proper connections on that. So let's take a look. And here's a fire escape crossover with a ladder. Just so you know, you can never close these holes here. They got to always be maintained open. And as you can see, this one with a ladder still crosses a firewall too. This is in Boston. Okay. Can't have ACs in the windows. This is now we're going to jump a little bit into Chicago and California. These are the just like you go into your attic. You release this thing up here, and these ladders shoot down to the ground. This is something that I've never seen. I've inspected throughout Massachusetts. I've never seen an accordion ladder, and they're in San Francisco and in LA. That's all you have is accordion ladders to a certain degree. It's their answer because this thing is, you know, on average 14 feet, 16 feet off the ground. And you just unroll it in like an accordion, and then you come down like a regular ladder. Now here's some of the fire escapes that you see typically throughout the United States. Staircases, and the thing about them, a lot of them, because they're on main streets, staircase, ends in a ladder. All of them. All these staircases feeding one ladder. That's usually a guillotine ladder. This is residential. This is on one of the hills up in San Francisco. The tallest hill has its tallest building with one of the tallest fire escapes. But well maintained. You know, very surprised when I went over there, especially in San Francisco. All painted. They have a great program up there, and they inspect their ladders every year. They don't inspect the rest of the fire escape, but they force an inspection on the ladders every year that they must be functional. And I asked, well, what about, you know, where's the 5-year rule? There isn't any. What about the rest of the fire escape? You know, engineering, there isn't any. But prove the ladder.
80% on the fire escape over there, it's all galvanized. That's why.
Yeah, and they have a rule there that no lead paint on their fire escapes, which is another hush-hush issue that not many people want to talk about, but all the fire escapes you talk about have lead. So how do we handle that part, scrape and paint? But there's a lead issue in all your fire escapes in San Francisco and in some other parts of California. If it's proven that it has lead, astronaut suits must come in. So a lot of people already flipped their fire escapes over to galvanized fire escapes. And we didn't find as much simply because they've already gone through the transition of just getting all the stuff down and putting all new galvanized stuff up. And as you can see, just by looking at it, this is buildings. This is buildings in, you know, from here to California. But the cities that are not doing very good is, you know, the East Coast, Chicago and Texas are not doing very well at keeping up there. But you start getting into the West Coast. San Francisco is probably the top in keeping up with things. LA, like Boston, is a lot of things are rotting off the building.
A question on that last picture.
Yep.
you see the ladder going down. It goes across the face of all the windows. In one of the other ones, you showed the ladder going down the firewall. So that if you ever had a fire and the fire was coming out the windows, it seems like you'd toast the people trying to get down the ladder.
You're talking about this ladder right here?
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
it's 3 feet up.
It's 3 feet out, but if you had a fire and it was coming out the windows, somebody's trying to come down the ladder, wouldn't they get toasted? As opposed to if that ladder was put over with a brick masonry
I'm sorry.
wall.
You know what you're not seeing here that I have to explain to you? They come down the stairs. This ladder is a guillotine ladder. As soon as they release it, it drops to the ground.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's sort of the guide bars up there.
All right, so the ladder is
The
protected
ladder,
by the
it's
masonry.
stairs to a ladder that drops here.
Okay.
Stairs to a ladder that drops here. Stairs, and this is a ladder that drops here.
It's a pipe. Go all the way up.
Yeah, it's a guide. It's nothing but a guide. And by the way, on the 12th story, that's what we had to do. The last piece was just 22 feet off the ground. We had to make this 22-foot guillotine ladder that dropped to the ground. And it had to have guide pipes up above so that, when it comes down, it's crazy. Cantilevers. All kinds of cantilevers out there. And here's another one with a staircase. And this one has not only the ladder away from windows like you're talking about, but it also has what's called the accordion ladder here. Drop. But let's talk about cantilevers. This cantilever has the weight on the nose. See, it's pivoted here, and the weight is on the nose, and it goes up here, and it usually has some sort of contraption that goes up and over something, and when the nose drops, you sort of walk through this archway thing, and these are horrible when they do it on the nose. The norm is right there with this cantilever, and this is a perfect example of what happens on a cantilever when it's out of balance. First of all, let me tell you how we clean our shops. Okay? We clean our shops with all the punches from the rails that we make. We fill them in this trash can right here. Because we don't go out and buy weights. We fill our trash right in there. And we fill in just enough so that, like a counterbalance, the day we build it, it's counterbalanced and it's horizontal. And when we release it, because we're up here, there's a release arm up here that's supposed to be here. When we release it and push that bar out of our way, and we'll cover that later, as soon as I release it, that counterbalance, which weighs 25 pounds more on the nose than it does on the tail, drops and hits the ground. It stays there. But now, over time, while it's in its horizontal, this here is Vassar College. We did an inspection at Vassar College. They had about 40 buildings that we inspected. And one of the things that we do when we do a town is that we would actually use Google Earth, find your town, find the institution, whatever, and we identify all the buildings that we found fire escapes. And then from that, we break it up into clusters, and we say, hey, this is your area. This is what's called the pump house area. And so we identified the oil tanks, the water tank, which, by the way, needs to be inspected. Water tanks need to be inspected. We also found the wooden bridges. Because, again, bridges, exterior bridges, car bridges. This needs to be inspected. Believe it or not, my license allows me to inspect these things. I always bring engineers in on this stuff, but exterior bridges, catwalks, crossover bridges. So, but on these, we bring in the engineers to basically say, hey, this little car bridge, which is on a piece of private property, needs to be inspected and certified. Okay, so this is us, and these are all shots of the individual fire escapes that were, including the wood bridges. All these buildings up here all have wooden fire escapes outside. They all too must be inspected. But in New York, the fire department, every year, they must inspect all their fire escapes. Every year. No engineer required. They just have to have it inspected. Anybody. So they call me and say, hey, you inspect? I say, I inspect. Do you travel? I say, I travel. And it's funny, it's great. I travel all over. I've been to, Dallas, Fort Worth, Chicago, New York, Jersey, Maine. I mean, we travel all over. In California, we just did 2 projects. We did a 12-story fire escape in L.A., and then we did in Long Beach. We took down an existing wood fire escape and put up a brand new fire escape. Using a guy from out there, who's now an associate member, He did. We just went out there to make sure he did it right. He did it to our standards. And now we're doing a seminar like this at Long Beach because while I'm pulling the permit at Long Beach, I spoke with the chief supervisor there. They're called chief. I think they're now called commissioners. They have a different name. The name escapes me now. But we're doing on the third Thursday of July. We're doing a seminar just like this at Long Beach. But now the fire department has to be there because they're the ones that handle fire escapes. So the building inspectors are going to be there, but he has to bring in the fire department because they're the ones that inspect the fire escapes. So we've identified all the buildings, and this is just to make, depending, sometimes some people have 40, 50, so we're now in the midst, this just came out recently, this system. We're now trying to do the same thing now back to Harvard, since we have all their information. Now we're trying to identify all of Harvard's buildings using this form. But if you want your city mapped out, you have schools, you have buildings that are in use, that if you want us, we can go and identify all the buildings on a Google Earth map and say, here, we've identified 16 fire escapes in your city that belong to you, that you control for some reason, and we can do the inspections. Okay? So let's talk about the biggest problem that we find a lot of times. The one thing that really sticks out first is catwalks, missing catwalks. This is in Rhode Island right here. This is a big factory. Yeah, it's Woonsocket. It used to be steel, United Steel or American Steel, right by the river, Blackstone River there. And they do plastics there. It's a big factory complex, which is, by the way, going to become commercial residential condo. But in the meantime, they have a staircase that comes all the way down. Here's the staircase, lands on this roof, and this is the building of the catwalk system here. They don't know how to get to this only staircase down on the opposite corner down there. So we have to build a catwalk on this roof to basically capture the people during the smoke, during the chaos, and they're just going to get guided down to the ladder that's in that back corner somewhere. So just remember, when you see a fire escape land on any roof, and then there's no way off that roof, violation. Here's a catwalk. Now it's your question. Full staircase to the roof, nothing off the roof, so it's missing its catwalk. Do you want a ladder to the ground, or do you want a full staircase to the ground? So, question, if you have a balcony and a ladder to your roof, no catwalk, will you allow them to do the continuation of, catwalk it to the edge, and then they'll continue, because they already have an existing ladder, let them have a ladder? Or do you want them to always go to a staircase to the ground?
Define ladder. Is it a 30-degree, or is it a
No,
vertical?
vertical ladder up against the wall. Stairs are 24 inches wide, 8 and 8, or 7-11. Oh, that's another thing that everybody brings up. Oh, and we just did this in Cambridge at the YMCA. They were going to. It was approved incorrectly that they were going to come down the fire escape on this very very odd building, land on a roof, and then step back into the building. Oh, by the way, it's sprinkled. Yeah, and I had just run into an issue in the city of Cambridge where Ranji was I think he's the head building official there, had okayed another building that was a 10-unit residential that he had okayed going back into the building by mistake. Because a lot of things happen when you guys talk, and a lot of people misinterpret some of the things you said. But when I brought it up to his attention, he goes, no, you can't do that. It has to be, once you're out, you're out. You have to stay out and get it out to the ground. So when this client calls me up and says, oh, the historical committee already approved this, the building inspectors already approved this, the architect already drew it this way, we're going to come off that 4th floor, come down into this rooftop on the 2nd floor, and go back into the building at this stairwell that's fully sprinkled. I said, nope, can't. But I said, but you can go again and ask the building inspector and ask the chief, the commissioner, and say, hey, are you sure you're going to allow me, sort of pose the question directly again? And then they're going to go, well, no, we got to get down to the ground, or cross over to another building somewhere. So that's a question that's going to come up to a lot of you guys, residential buildings, commercial buildings, where all of a sudden it's balcony, ladder, rooftop. How do you get down? You're going to let them get a ladder because it's already pre-existing? Or are you going to force them into a full staircase? I don't make that decision. I pose that question to you.
Change the use. You don't have to allow them to have this outside.
Everybody's different. You will say one thing. But I've had people that they have To the left. No, I know. I'm just saying. To me, I know what the code says. It says, you know, it has to go over the staircase. But I've had ladders be put back on. Let's take a look at New York. This is a hotel I inspected. See my foot? My foot's only 11 inches. See this window? That's a hotel room. That's the window I crawled out of in order to get on to start my inspection. That's me. I only have probably between the window 12 inches, 16 inches between me and that window. And this is a 12-story building.
Keep doing this and you better not be doing these seminars.
Now, they are renovating this entire hotel, and this is the problem. Now, what do I do with this? I got to tell them, listen, in New York, this is rampant. This little nothing of a catwalk with no rail, cast iron stairs. These are all cast iron full of cement and poop from pigeons. And I'm hammer testing all these things, and look at the rail. You know, it's basically, imagine everybody evacuating a room, and then how do you get all these people to twist all the way down? Well, here's my hammer test. Our system, and we'll go into, you know, this is what happens, this is what kills people, going up or going down. How many roofers have gone up staircases? How many people have done work on sides of buildings, you know, just stomping on these fire escapes all day long? All you need is a tread to fall the wrong way and your foot goes through. You either snap your knee forward or you fall backwards and you smash your back. All because of this. And again, Blackstone proved that, you know, hey, even showing and trying to sell your property is dangerous.
This is MIT at 111 Bay State.
Yep. Yeah, that one, what we're looking at there, this is a fraternity house full of kids. They don't use the fire escape at all. They try to stay off the fire escape as often as they can. This right here is showing you the problem with supports. This fire escape is on a Maloney property. We inspected it, but somebody else repaired it. And one of the things we identified is that this support, which is nothing but a C channel into the wall, needs a leg from here, just like this arm right here, support brace. It needs one here because this lone C channel is holding this staircase and this staircase, and this thing is only embedded into the wall 8 to 12 inches. So we identified this one as an arm, missing an arm, either a leg to the ground or an arm to the wall here. We'll show you how the guy fixed that. This right here is 1 inch on a gusset. This is support. There's over 1 inch of rust on that gusset. Yet the bolts are still there. The heads are still there. That's holding a platform. That's holding a staircase. This is the clip at the bottom. There's over 1.5 inches of rust right here, eating the C channel when they come down and they rest on the lower platform. Don't forget, fire escapes have been around 50 to 75 years, at least. 50 to 75 years. I was just born at the right time. They weren't rotting 30 years ago. There were some problems, but 30 years later, there's a lot of problems, especially with all this reuse of the buildings. Buildings are now being reused, and a lot of people want to continue to use their fire escapes as a means of egress. So here's some cement problems. These are all cement issues that need to be resolved, that somebody just sort of finger painted some cement on there. We'll tell you what the proper procedure is going to be. And in some of your own cities, anybody here from Haverhill? Is Haverhill here? Well, one of our inspectors, Ernie, lives in Haverhill, and he brought to the attention of one of the Haverhill officials, say, by the way, while you're pointing the finger at all the other people in Haverhill, can you fix that one tread that's out there?
It's not the only one. It's a more than
Yeah.
almost 10 treads already full. Nobody uses it.
Yeah, and I believe Bernie had spoken with somebody. He says, "Oh, we don't use the upper part of the building." So,
yeah, I talked with the building inspector, and he said we never
we don't use that.
I use that.
that anymore.
So, but it's still there. So
But
that's
again,
maintained.
this is we don't mean to point anybody out. But all this is to say, in your own city, you have fire escapes that haven't been looked at in a while, and a lot of times you have some injury, you have some risk at your own building. Okay, so and that's something we can do. We can come in and take a peek at some of your own structures that either house children, house employees, and just get those things at least buttoned up and functional until such time that the budget allows you to fix it and get a certification. Okay. So again, this is at Tufts University. No catwalk here, and the guy, this is two 2x12s acting as a wall, and this entire fire escape with a cantilever down at the bottom is lag bolted to these two 2x12s. At an MIT fraternity house. I'm sorry, Tufts University. So this is the stair. I mean, this is the missing catwalk system. So the chance of you falling off the roof on this side are good, but you're supposed to walk all the way across and then come over to this one over here and then climb up on this that is being held by these two 2x4s tied back to some sort of 4x4 post there. Made them aware of it. Again, they didn't hire us to go repair it. I don't know if they did get it repaired. And a lot of times, if they call a guy that is an iron worker or an engineer that's not paying attention, they certify this. It's all set. Even though it has no catwalk.
What would the catwalk be there? A steel catwalk right across from one side
It
to
could
the
be
other?
wood or steel, and basically it is, depending on the size of your staircase. If it's 24, you make a 24-inch catwalk. If it's 36, you make a 36-inch catwalk. And all it is at the bottom of the stair. Now, wherever the stair is over there, you can lead them, diagonally across, or I can left turn it, hit that wall, hit the edge of the building. I usually like to get to one edge of the building. I don't like to walk across the center of a building. Get to the edge of the building, and then and it's got to have rails on both sides so people don't fall in any direction. And it's during the smoke, it's like cattle. I got to get you to the.
I see. So if you're just going across the middle of the roof and putting a catwalk there seems a little difficult to do. Carry walk treads or something isn't enough because if you had smoke and stuff, you need the rails.
You need rails to protect, keep the people confined and moving toward. You're controlling them all the way till they finally egress away from the building. And you need to bridge. So if somebody's doing a catwalk, there's some sort of bridge system so that as the roof gets weaker from any of the fire, if it was steel, you'd have this steel bridge that will sort of hold itself before it collapses into the roof. By then it's a moot point. But, we're basically creating this bridge system that basically will keep people to get out. But at the same time, when firemen come, if there was a bridge going across this way, a fireman would most likely run across a catwalk than he would or across a burning roof. So that's why. And we got to control people all the way down. All right, some of the issues. People bury it in dirt. This is again a soldier's home in Chelsea, just buried right into the dirt. The dirt is eating the iron. This is soldier's home. They haven't inspected their fire escapes in 25 years. Currently, right now, they're in a hold basis because the amount of money needed to fix these fire escapes, they didn't have it. Nobody saw this coming. Till this day, they haven't fixed it. To my knowledge, they haven't fixed any of the emergencies on the soldiers' field. They don't have the money. And again, this is all the rust. Pigeon poop, leaves, they'll just eat the top of your treads. Again, all these are violations that I would not sign on a fire escape saying it won't last another 5 years. Treads are going to fall.
Does that put you in a kind of an awkward place like a soldier's home if the fire escape is unsafe and they haven't fixed it? What's that say about the occupancy?
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Caught between a rock and a hard place. Have I called in fire escapes to the Boston hotline saying, hey, go check 672 Tremont Street? Yeah. Am I a snitch? No. If the thing is ready to fall and kill somebody. Do I do that on every fire escape? No, because there's not a lot of fire escapes that have red. When they hit red, depending on some instances, I don't call it in because these people are they're shopping around to get it. But in some instances, 6 months later, it's still red. I'm like,
yeah.
And to me, if I build a relationship with anybody in here and they say, Sisker, you see anything in my town that's red, you call me. Believe me, you'll get a copy of the report. I may tell the client I don't send these reports to anybody, but somehow, some way, I will let you know that there's something. Not because I need a job. It's because somebody's going to get killed on it, and that's the last thing I want is to hear that somebody got killed on something that I was waiting for a job to generate from it. I actually, as one of my recommendations, just like sprinkler systems, when they do inspections on the sprinkler system and there's a fault with the sprinkler system? Isn't it required by the sprinkler inspector guy that he must notify the fire department, the building inspector? I recommend highly, but it's not required, that I be forced to notify you of an emergency situation in any building. But it's not required right now. Can I do it as a courtesy? Sure. Tell me, Cisco, anything you find out there, you let me know. Okay. This is, you know what this is? This is called our express report. This is not even our full report. This is nothing but a short, we get this out within 24 hours of an inspection because we have this full-blown report. It's a lot of wallpaper. But this express report is what I can shoot to you right away that says the fire escape either passed or failed, either needs emergency repairs, and this is that fire escape. This is a very good fire escape to talk about right now. This is in New Jersey. 504 Jane Street in New Jersey. Okay? And I got a call from a woman who says, hey, I had an engineer inspect this fire escape, and he says it needs a couple of things. Fix this tread, fix this other thing, and he's going to sign off it. And she goes, I'm uneasy with what this guy came back as. Because what happened here was that this is, first of all, the history of this building. The talkies back in the 20s, this was the Hollywood of the Northeast for the not for the talkies, for the silent movies. This was a studio for all the silent movies. Came out of Lee, I think it's called Fort Lee, New Jersey. Right over the bridge, right over George Washington Bridge, right there. You run right into Fort Lee. That's how the historical nature of this building. This was a movie house for not the talkies, but for the silent movies. And a year ago, there was an alarm went off on one of these doors. A policeman went up to this to go check the door, and one of the stairs fell. He got hurt, called the fire department. The fire department comes down, writes violations up the yin-yang on this whole building. Okay? What they get, she immediately, jumps because it's like a bunch of owners own this thing from that in Florida. It's because it's historical. There's several trustees. It's just a whole. But this is now a house with a storage. Nothing but storage in this building. And what she gets back is this letter. And this letter, I don't think I gave you a copy of this letter. I don't believe. Let me see. Yes, I did. The letter's on the back of one of your sheets here. It's on the back of this is my report. This is one page of my report. My report's 15 to 20 pages long, but this is what the engineer said he would do, all that needed to be done in order for him to come back and certify this thing. And it says there's a couple of, based on my inspection, the following items require corrective work. Steel exit door at second floor does not open easily. Some of the steel platform floor straps are bent, tripping hazard. We suggest a center mid-span support underneath the floor straps. A third floor tread on the first stair from the ground has fallen off, so put it back. And the fire escape will require paint after scraping down steel to base metal. And upon that, the corrective work listed to be performed prior to approval and certification of stair. Once we have inspected and approved the corrective work, we will certify it to the structural soundness, load-bearing capacity of the stair. We will then confirm the same by signing and sealing the certificate letter with our New Jersey professional structural engineer seal. So he said, come over here. He said, fix this tread over here. Fix that broken door on some of these platforms. The bearing bars are a little, just put something underneath there. Okay?
At the beginning of this letter though, it does say the purpose of this inspection was to view, test, and inspect the stair of 6 platforms. In other words, that's not all 12 platforms or 14 platforms.
Yeah, no, 6 platforms. He means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's he's calling every level a platform.
Well, that's what you're assuming when you read this, but you don't know you don't know if the top half of that building is being used or what the story is. So, what is he actually?
His letter is inspecting. He used very simple terminology, but he's inspecting the entire fire escape. This letter is to inspect the entire fire escape. The only reason I'm bringing this up as a point is to be careful. When I say inspect the inspector, don't just look at me and how I inspect. There's some engineers out there that are asleep at the switch, and there's some that are not. Majority of them are not. They're out there doing the right work. But every now and then you got some of them that are asleep at the switch, will sign off, and I condemn this fire escape. This fire escape needs to be either torn down or it needed quite a bit of work, because look at all the rust we found on here, all the broken treads, all the way to the very top. We've got so much rust on this fire escape that we identified all the violations, and the city shut the fire escape down until such time that they can get the work performed. They're trying to determine whether or not they want to remove the entire fire escape off the building, because they have 2 central stairways, and because it has changed the use of the building, they want to say, well, we have our 2 means of egress, get rid of the fire escape. So now it's in limbo. Since January, this fire escape has been in limbo. But it's all blocked off now. Now it's the rule. Use it or lose it. They've blocked it off so that nobody, by mistake, will get into it. All the doors on the inside are boarded with plywood, so you don't go out to the fire escape until they decide whether they're going to put the money aside to get this fire escape done.
Plus the roof needs a catwalk.
And the roof is missing a catwalk on this. But let me tell you our inspection procedure, which should be everybody's inspection procedure. When we walk a fire escape, we hammer test. We bring 3 color paints. We bring yellow, we bring red, and we bring white. As we hammer test the rails, the treads, and we're going to show you some examples of that, we find any violation that has rust between something, we're going to hit it with a small dot of yellow paint. If it's a bent item that needs to be replaced, we hit that with a yellow paint. If it's a connection that hasn't broken yet but it's about to break, we hit it with yellow paint. So anything that's a repair, as we walk through, we identify all the violations with a small dot of yellow paint. As we hammer test, should a tread give way, now not only does it get yellow, but it's going to have red, and we put caution tape around it so nobody falls down that staircase. And we have a digital camera. We take pictures of it. That's where we get all our pictures, is we take pictures of everything after we've identified everything. The white is for anything cement related into a building, and we mark it, and we take photographs. Now, when we walk away from this fire escape, we've just left the fire escape for the client if they have the means. If you're a city, if you have the means and a maintenance department, you just go back and fix the yellows, fix the reds, and cement the whites. Scrape it down and paint it. We'll come back and certify it. Don't have a maintenance team? Put it out to bid. Like Lynn did, like Everett did. We came out, we bid the job, we marked it all up for violations, we generated all kinds of reports, and they put these reports and they put it out to bid. When the bid, whoever wins the work, which is usually not an iron worker, because iron workers don't bid fire escape jobs. It's usually a contractor who then subs it out to Joe Ironworks somewhere. But when Joe Ironworks says he's done, no, we're going to go back and verify that everything we mark, because we have the original photographs. We're going to go verify that Joe Ironworks did it correctly. Because you paid us a fee to inspect and re-inspect and certify the fire escape. So we can do fire escapes so that you do the work, or somebody else is going to do the work, or we do the work. If we do any work for you, it's a 10-year guarantee. Somebody else does the work, we come back and verify, and we give you what's called before and after pictures. So the main point I want to stress here is be careful with engineers can sometimes be asleep at the switch. Be very careful, okay? So let's talk about how fire escapes are built. Right now, this is going to cover 98% of all fire escapes ever built in the United States are going to be covered in this, and you have this as your sheet. You look in your pamphlet, 2 or 3 pages into it, you're going to see some sheets that have components. Okay. Now, ask any questions, because this is where fire escapes, masonry fire escapes, and wood fire escapes tie. This is that question about tying into buildings. Okay. So the first thing is, when it goes into a masonry, it usually goes through the veneer and it ties into something back here, whether it's 2 additional courses of brick, or it could be a block wall of some sort. But basically, it goes through the veneer of the brick and into 8 to 12 inches is the average. It's nothing but a dirty hole in there that they just pack. These are not; they don't have any steel welded to them so that they don't pull out. Usually, it's just anchored right in there. And this is how it starts. All steel starts by being implemented. On average, minimum 2 by 2 by quarter. It can be bigger, but the least it should be is 2 by 2 by quarter. Then it goes into this step where now it has a brace. The brace, again, similar material, 2 by 2 by quarter. Sometimes these become channels. These become T-bars. Again, minimum 2 by 2 by quarter or greater. With that, as you can see, they also tie in at the bottom into the cement, and these have known to cause a lot of problems. If the water keeps channeling its way down here, feeding in there, it destroys walls, it spoils the brick, all kinds of problems. And up here, the same thing. If water gets in here and it spalls this, it causes problems. Here's the third way. So this is how you hang a fire escape from a building. Into the wall with a brace. You don't need legs to the ground. If you don't have the ability to to bury into the wall, you have this option here. So I can still be embedded into the wall, but now I don't need to be here. I can have this portion here lag bolted in because now this leg comes down to a sonotube on the ground. The building is my leg. Now I don't have to lag. I don't have to through bolt into the building. You understand? Because I'm not pulling. And then if I am on a wood structure and there is going to be some pulling, here's your through bolt answer right here. Okay? The way we answer this, the through bolt, is very simple. I don't care where your support's going to land. Sometimes it doesn't pick up the 2x4s side by side. What we do is we go through and usually put a plate in there. A lot of times they want you to go into the building, plate, and go pick up two studs. And then what the problem that lies there is that now this has to be an exposed plate on the outside with a big nut. Minimum on here is, this has got to be a 5/8 to 3/4 minimum. So if anybody sees lag bolts, it's failed. If anybody sees through bolts coming out, that means it passed, because that's what it needs. It needs to be. Now, the engineering on this is that you have to go and pick up the two studs. If your client wants you to hide it, a lot of times guys will take sawzalls and they'll start eating into the stud just enough for the thing to recess itself so they can sheetrock over it. But they never tell anybody. And I'm sure a lot of you have already seen what that problem that causes. One of the things that we've had engineered and approved is that we could put a plate inside that runs 15 inches, and then on this plate it's specially modified so it has an angle clip this way and an angle clip this way, and we pick up the two studs sideways. That lets it stay in the cavity. Okay? A lot of times when we have multiples going on, we've had it engineered where you can actually put a clip on the inside and several clips all along. On the outside, we put a piece of angle running the whole thing, picking up all the through bolts. So that way we have multiple through bolts coming out to a common angle, and from that common angle you put your supports anywhere you want. So they're all tugging. They're all tugging at a piece of angle that's common. In order for that fire escape to come down, it has to take the whole wall has to come down with it. So again, through bolting is the answer for anything that's wood, but you don't need a through bolt on a masonry building because they can just embed it here. And we're going to go over the correct repair for this. Is very simple. A lot of guys will just sort of remove any dirt, any loose falling pieces here, and then repack that with their fingertips and do that crazy stuff that I just showed you a little bit before. Illegal. Can't do that. What we do is you have to come in with a drill, hammer drill, either 1/4 inch or 3/8 hammer drill, and you just start drilling until it starts hitting solid concrete and just blow out whatever wants to fall out. All this falling stuff, just drill it out. You drill enough holes, it'll all fall out. And then repack that with anchoring cement. Fast dry anchoring cement. We'll tie it in nice and tight. Questions so far? Any questions on through bolts? Anchoring.
The bottom
legs to the ground.
The bottom one didn't need to be a through bolt. That could be a lag.
Which one?
That right there.
Yeah, the only through bolt you need is here. That's just a lag. That's just keeping the leg from swinging in that direction, but it's compressing this way. So I've seen people mistakenly put one here and put one down here. It has no value down here. Nothing. It's a pull-up. So it wants to pull this out. Yeah. Basically what you want, if a fire escape lands on the ground and it brought a piece of the wall with you, it was a wall failure, not a fire escape failure. It was a wall failure. Okay, any questions? Okay, now let's get into stairs and treads. What you have here is a clip at the top and a clip at the bottom. So if somebody built fire escapes correctly in the past, they basically built it so that the seat, the flat of the seat channel going up had a sort of a clip over. And that clip over would basically rest on top of the angle over here, and that saves you in case you ever have a failure of any of these clips. There's no catastrophic drop. Clips. At the bottom, there's a notch, so you come down and you notch into the platform. A lot of them, as you know, just land right on top. They didn't bother doing the math and the calculations, just lands on top, and they put a simple little clip over here. And if they did the notch, it was made to be as a backup in case your bolts failed. 75% of the fire escapes I see do not have this. They all have, they have this cut off completely. This is not even there. That little piece there and that little notch up there is not even there. So in case there's a failure at the top clips or the bottom clips, this whole staircase can literally fall straight through. Okay? Getting into treads and grading now. Treads were built to fail. All treads 50 to 75 years old sit on this simple angle clip, 1.5 inches or 1.25 inch angle clip. This accumulates bird poo, accumulates leaves, anything that floats and flies, it accumulates right there. So these were made so that they start accumulating and the water and the dirt builds in there and it blows out the clip sideways. That's why when I hammer test this thing will fall. All these treads were also built with this through rod with the 1-inch spacers, which were never painted when they put it together. So they painted the outside of the tread and it started failing the next day. The new fire escape treads that are built today, they're built with, on the side here, it's a 1/4 inch piece of flat. The new grading that has no through rods that go through it, gets welded right to it. So there's no place for snow to accumulate. There's no place for bars never to get painted. That's the new treads. The grading, this is the old problem we have with the grading, is that they have these spacers that rot out. They rotted out the day they were built. The answer here, the only answer here is replace it with a new grading which has, flat bars running this way and then 1/4 inch round bars compressed, welded into them every 4 inches. So, and I recommend highly that all grading that goes in, go in galvanized, because the difference is like 20 to 40 bucks. A piece of grading for me, whether it's 400 bucks or 420 bucks, galvanized is the answer, because now it's already coming with 20 years protection. Otherwise, a lot of these guys will buy grading to replace it on a thing. They come already black from the steel mill. It has this lacquer paint job that doesn't even have a primer. 1 year later, all that lacquer just blows away, and it starts rusting the grading already, which will fail the fire escape because it must be kept painted, it must be structurally sound. So, but the answer to a lot of these is very simple. You have to put a piece of flat bar underneath it, next to it, and you have to weld every single flat bar next to to this. But welding's an issue, because now I need a fireman there with a 4-hour permit that's watching me weld on a 100-year-old building. But I can't take the grading down because it's a big mess to take the grading down. Well, you can J-bolt. You can use J-bolts to basically, if you put a piece of angle underneath there, you can just J-bolt all this down. But guys are up there welding fire escapes all day long. As soon as you see a fire escape being repaired and there's a welding machine that's on, something's wrong. First of all, they're breaking the law because they're supposed to have a fire detail there. Second of all, they're welding on a 100-year-old building. That thing's going to burn down. And you can't imagine where it starts. I was in Brookline, and I only have one fire to my credit, and that was, we're welding up on a project in Brookline, and for some reason, one spark got in through a windowsill and started an interior wall fire that burned for like 4 hours that nobody caught. Until one of my guys was working the job, and all of a sudden he saw this little flame coming through the wood, working its way up. He was smart. He jammed his glove in there, and then we called the fire department, and they caught it in time because it was an interior, and they had some blocking in there, fire blocking, and it was just an interior wall. And if you look outside, there was no fire on the outside, but yet this fire somehow, that spark got inside the wall and started an interior wall fire on a nice mansion in Brookline. It happened. So now, as you can see, the treads, these are the first things that fail, and they're either on flats or on channels. Here's your cantilever that we're going to talk about. Here's the release arm. That's what it looks like. The release arm is up there. You push it out of the way. It releases it down here. There's the weight box. This thing, once it drops in the same line as your staircase. Usually 12 feet off the ground, so trucks and things can get underneath it. And that was their purpose. For buildings that had, the first floors that had a mezzanine or something, they're made to be at least 12 feet off the ground, nothing lower, but they do occur lower. And they're made so that people can't get up there. There's no access, but they're made to basically use a piece of the stair plus a pivot point and drop. By the time you release it there, these are called drop cantilevers. They must drop. You see a chain from here to there, that means somebody's tricking you. It's horizontal, but it's out of balance. Somebody needs to walk out 3, 4, 5 steps in order to make this thing counterweight the big mess, that big chunk. And I've seen these fall and almost kill people. They fall all the time because the weights on them that hold them are just all rotting away, and they just drop these 400 or 500 pounds. Rails, same way. Some rails attach into the building, and that doesn't go that far. They just basically go right into the first layer of brick. They sometimes tie at the T-bar here, and they sometimes tie up there, and we just re-bolt them. We never weld. You don't go and weld. Fire escapes are not made to be welded. There's connections there. Break those bolts, remove the rust, put 3/8 bolts. 3/8 bolts throughout this whole fire escape. The only time that you start moving into anything thicker on bolts is here. These are all 5/8. If it's single, it's 5/8. If it's multiple, such as quarts, it's 1/2 inch. But every now and then you got guys putting 3/8 bolts throughout the whole thing because they bought a supply of bolts at Home Depot or something for 3/8, and they 3/8 or 5/16 I've seen a lot of times. The common thickness of bolts is 3/8. But on structural, it's 1/2 inch when it's multiple, it's 5/8 or 3/4 when it's single, depending on the structure. Questions on how things get built? This is 98% of all the fire escapes from here to California. They all follow this rule. That's why a lot of the guys that are in the business, they basically copycat something that they see in their city. And a lot of times, your reference is, if somebody built a fire escape for you, you look at another one that's been there for 25, 50 years, and you just sort of copycat it. Hey, the one you just built looks like that one, looks pretty good, and And a lot of times, for the longest time, fire escapes were being passed without an engineer stamp on it. Simple, the ironwork in your local area, basically hand draw or half drawn, or tell you what he's going to build, and he just would build it, pull a permit, and just build something more or less like something else. It was one of these situations where a lot of the iron workers just basically that's all they've been doing for the longest time. So you don't have them draw rails for you. Nobody was drawing fire escapes, but now it's getting a little bit more tricky, and we recommend highly that you have an engineer sign off any plans. One of the other things that we have here that we also are giving to you, and I'm going to go over briefly, is called the Fire Escape Procedures List. Okay. This right here has my information at the top, but we also have this in black and white with no names on top, and it's devoid of our information, no phone numbers, no nothing. And we recommend highly, because when we send out a pack to anybody, these 3 sheets get stapled to anybody's contract that's going to do any work on a fire escape. So a lot of times when we set this up for a client, we have the client, if they don't pick us, we say, please attach these 3 sheets to whoever's contract you have, and it's nothing but how to fix it correctly. Okay? So, but you can have this in your file at your city hall so that if somebody's doing a fire escape, you can hand them this with your name on the top saying, hey, here's some guidelines of how we'd like you to handle the repair of this fire escape. And they're going to sign at the bottom. They'll have a space for their signature. So it's nothing but guidelines. And this is unique to us, but we'll give it to you on, you can just photocopy this and erase our name. Or if you call us, we'll put your name at the top and then send you the digital version of it so that you can make multiple copies and send it to whoever needs it, because we do that for you, okay? So there's the Mass Building Code at the very top. Testing and certification, maintenance, okay? Obstruction, don't block anything. Translation, 100% of all rust of the fire escape must be removed. And that the fire escape must have more paint than rust for me to pass it. So I'm not going out there and just closing everybody down saying, oh, you got a little bit of rust, you don't pass it. That's not what it's meant. It's meant that if it has more paint than rust, don't forget, they got another 5 years. I advise people, I say, listen, most likely in 5 years' time, you're going to fail just on the paint. I recommend that you paint it now. But as long as the paint is not in non-critical areas, such as where you run your hands, but if more than 50 to 75% of the fire escape has paint on it, I'm going to pass it. If more than 50% of the fire escape has rust, it fails the paint side. Structurally, it's just that. It can't have any rust anywhere. Okay? And I'm talking about major rust. If it has 1/8, 1/16 of rust, a line rust in the bolt, it's great. It still passes. I'm not going to make them remove that rust. I strongly recommend that they silicone shut any rust that has started and encapsulated, but not a lot of people want to do that. We do, and that's why we can offer the 10-year. But let's talk about some of the points. I'm just going to hit some of the points that are on this list here. We talk about full stairs and platforms, crossovers and ladders, Catwalks, we talk about how the catwalks must be continuous. On the back side here, when we start talking about treads, everything is broken out. The tread, a rail, it's basically, it repeats itself. All treads on a fire escape must have all side clip angle connections free of rust 100% before rebolting can occur. All top bolts must be free of rust 100%. Rebolt, reinforce, or replace entire fire escape tread if required. Welding repair optional, but must have a fire detail permit on site. I'm not saying you can't weld fire escapes back together. You can. I don't know why, but take the precaution. If you removed 100% of the rust, and the guy chooses to weld the whole thing back instead of rebolting, which is right there, it's 4 bolts. He wants to drag 100 feet of cable, pay a fireman to sit there and watch him weld this tread back on that just needs 4 bolts that he took off to get it out. Makes no sense to me, but they do it all the time. They love to weld the hell out of everything. Okay, where's the fire detail? 100% of the rust removed? Good. Weld it like crazy. Keep the place wet and weld like crazy. It will pass inspection. Now, what they do is they weld it with the rust in place, and they don't change the bolts. And now, any engineer that gets brought onto any fire escape that has rust in the connections and asks them, is this certifiable, will fail it on the spot. I don't care how good that weld is, because welds snap, bolts stretch. And as soon as you leave the rust in there, you fail because of rust. Not because it needed a weld, it failed because of rust. So remove the rust, now choose. Rebolt it, which is simple, tighten it, or re-weld it, which means get a welding machine, drag the welding machine, wait for the fireman to arrive with his extinguisher to be there watching you, and you got a permit, then weld. And they do all the time. So, and tread clip and stringer surfaces must be free of rust and wire rust. All fire escape surfaces must be primed after repair. All connections must be silicone shut with 50-year silicone after proper repair, and then full paint the entire area of the fire escape. Now, this silicone, this is our recommendation, but it's not required by law. But if you read the code here, I'll read a piece of the code here. It says, maintenance. All exterior stairways and fire escapes shall be kept free of snow and ice. Exterior stairways and fire escapes constructed of materials requiring an application of weather-protecting products shall have these products applied in an approved manner and shall be applied as often as necessary to maintain the stairways and the fire escape in safe condition where corrodable structural parts of such as stairway and fire escape tied directly into the building or structural system. All joints shall be sealed as necessary to prevent water from damaging or corroding the structural elements. I read that and I said, okay, where rust used to be, when you put that connection back, now it's got all these nooks and crannies. It says put something back in there. I'm putting in there 50-year silicone. Do you want 50-year silicone? Well, then, if you have these as guidelines for people who are fixing fire escapes in your town, they'll do it. If not, they'll never do it. I don't know one guy that buys, silicone to put in their fire escapes, because they need that fire escape to go bad in 5 years so they can go back and feed on it again. But ladies and gentlemen, I got 8,500 fire escapes in Boston. Why would I want to go back to a fire escape I fixed 5 years ago? I want that client to refer me to their neighbors on either side. I don't want to go back. I want to go forward. So if you read these procedures, they all repeat themselves. They say remove 100% of rust. If you're gonna weld, make sure you have the guy there with a permit. Fix it. But the common theme in this whole thing, going to all the stairways and treads and rails, remove 100% of rust, fix it. So if you want these guidelines, you can just hand it to the guy, make him attach it, or use it as guidelines as handouts to anybody fixing fire escapes in your town. The one point, again, that I want is the cantilever that again, it says it must drop. It gives you indications about with the 25 pounds on the nose. Because if you go to the book and you try to find any of this information in the code book, it's not there. It's 1028.3, done. So there's nothing specific to fire escape. Well, we wrote it up. We're handing it out to you for free because that's what we use. You want to use it as guidelines, great. You can use my name on it. You can use your own name on it. It doesn't matter to me. And we can give it to you in digital form, or you can just photocopy it and just, have your office do anything you want to the top of it. And then at the very end, there's a checklist. Make sure they have workers' comp, check their references, make sure they give you some sort of guarantee, 5 or 10 years, pull all required permits, and fire detail. That's a good question. How many fire escape permits do people pull to repair a fire escape? And to scrape and paint a fire escape, do you need a permit? And change a bolt. Hence the word a bolt. Bolts. Scrape and paint a fire escape, do you need a permit? Not many. How many people here have seen, ironworkers breaking down your door to pull a fire escape permit? Do you want them to pull permits? To play with a fire escape. I'm in the business, and you know to pull permits is a pain in the butt. Excuse my language. I'd rather not. I'm telling you I should. The same way I should be required to notify you that there's an emergency on a fire escape and required to tell the fire department. I should be required by law because it's a fire safety issue. I should be required to pull a permit because now it means that your building inspector is going to sign off my final certificate. The only time I don't need to pull a permit is because the fire escape is certifiable and I'm just signing it off. It's okay. Going to do some work? Make me fill out a permit for it. Do not accept any certificates on anything that's been repaired without it, going through the ropes. Get a permit on it. I don't need the extra headaches, but you know what? I got enough people. Like I said, I wrote a letter to Gary Mosher in Boston. I said, I will voluntarily give up my G3 license while you and your examiners review every certificate that's come in here over the past 6 months to a year. And I'm sure you're going to find some things out there that should have never been certified. And then make everybody reissue and go back after this license. They really want to be in this business, we'll get a special license to be doing fire escape certification. Simply because there's a lot of crap going on out there. Okay? Something I said? I think the food's coming. What are we looking at time?